Hello, welcome to Political Science 1101, American Government. This is Lesson 14 from Unit 1, Theories of Government, and this lesson is about modern conservatism. In this lesson, you'll learn about the tenets of modern conservatism, which include the wisdom of history, free markets, the American dream, and you'll learn about how modern conservatism's similarities to classical liberalism. You'll also learn about modern conservatism's relationship with traditional values. Now, to begin our consideration of modern conservatism, let's remember the basic idea of conservatism from a couple hundred years ago in the writings of Edmund Burke that we looked at in a previous in a previous lesson. Edmund Burke pointed out that he believed government should be judged by its practical results, and therefore we should be cautious about tearing down anything that works. We should be very careful about change. So with that in mind, we would expect that modern conservatism would be a great deal like classical conservatism, or the conservatism of Edmund Burke's time. It shouldn't have changed that much. And what it has done to change should be based upon practical results that have been observed in reality over the last couple hundred years. And in fact, that is what happened with modern conservatism. It has remained true to the basic premise of Edmund Burke's conservatism, that it relies upon the wisdom of history. It looks for practical results of what works and what doesn't, and hangs on to those things that it thinks does work, while still being open to potential change in the future. And one of the things that modern conservatism changed along the way since Edmund Burke's time is it actually embraced the views of one of the radicals of Edmund Burke's age, and that was Adam Smith, the economist, the classically liberal economist, who argued that economics should be judged by the wealth of the people rather than the wealth of the government. And if that were the way you were judging it, then you would construct a system to give people freedom to make their own economic decisions without government intervention or regulation, so that they could be as prosperous as possible. And as modern conservatives look back at history, they have observed that that system has worked, that free markets have throughout history tended to lift everyone in the society up to a higher standard of living. And they say, well, I guess it works, what Adam Smith suggested. And so modern conservatives have adopted this as another of their basic tenets, that they believe in the free marketplace, that people should be allowed to buy and sell what they want for what they want, etc. Now, if you once believe that, then something that grows out of it is an idea that is sometimes called the American dream. It was a term coined by a historian, James Treslow Adams, back in the time of around the time of the Great Depression. And what he observed was that in America, there's this feeling, this belief that as long as that America will give us opportunities according to our ability, that will allow us to obtain, as he puts it, our fullest stature based on our innate capabilities, regardless of the circumstances of our birth. In other words, America is a place where anyone can get ahead and succeed if they're just willing to go for it and work hard enough. Well, if you believe in the free market and that that's how people can prosper, then it's a natural outgrowth that you believe in this idea of the American dream, that as long as you preserve freedom of opportunity, anybody can make it. And so make them, the wrong way with the slides again, excuse me. These basic views of modern conservatives make them a lot like classical liberals, in that, at least certainly in the areas of economics, they generally believe in having a limited government that only does a few basic things for us, and other than that, leaves us to make our own decisions about our economic lives. Now, even though they follow this idea of limited government in economic areas, though, modern conservatives conservatives tend to want government involvement in culture wars. Things like, for example, as seen in the background photo here, the issue of abortion. Rather than just leaving people to make their own choices, modern conservatives want the government to step in and restrict what people can do. And this goes for other sorts of cultural things, like, for example, drug laws, wanting to stop people from being able to use recreational drugs, things like that. Now, this provides a fourth tenet for conservatism. That is, conservatives generally embrace traditional cultural values, the way things have traditionally been done in social circumstances regarding personal choices about particularly sexual things. They believe in traditional value systems about marriage and family and stuff like that. And they are willing to have the power of the government come into play to enforce those traditional values. Now, on the surface, that may seem like a bit of a contradiction. Remember, we thought there was perhaps a contradiction with modern liberals, that they wanted government involved heavily in people's lives, but then they wanted it to stay out of these cultural questions. And we tried to explain that by saying that modern liberals want people to be free. They just see different methods for freedom in different circumstances. In economic areas, they think the way to make people free is to make them more equal. But in matters of personal cultural choice, they want the government to stay out of the way. So while on the surface it may seem contradictory, that they want big government some places but not others, from their point of view it's consistent. Well, the same is true with modern conservatives. While they may generally want the government to stay out of people's lives and leave them alone, there are certain areas, for example, abortion, where they want government to step in and tell people what they can and can't do. And from the surface, that may seem contradictory. But let's remember the basic tenet of conservatism, as expressed by Edmund Burke, in the quote we began this lesson with. And that is, conservatism is about practical results and about infinite caution in pulling down systems that have worked. So when modern conservatives look back at what has worked, one of the things that they believe have worked is the traditional moral, religious structures of society that the family was built up around. So, yes, they want to see a father in the home, they want to see a mother in the home married to each other, they want to see not have abortion, not have illegitimate children, not have people using drugs, things like that, because they look and they say, that's what built our prosperous society, was having those kind of morals taught in the home. And so those are the things that we want to hold on to. As other forces in culture try to attack them, we want to defend those traditional values using the strength of the government. So from their point of view, they're being consistent. They're using the wisdom of history. Free markets have worked historically, and traditional values have worked historically. And so they want to hang on to both of them. All right, so that does it for this lesson. Now let's review what we learned. How do conservatives view economics? Do they want government ownership of economic businesses? Do they want economic businesses regulated? Or do they want free markets where people can buy and sell what they want? Or do they want protectionism where maybe we allow free markets here, but we stop goods and services from coming in from elsewhere in the world that might undercut what businesses are doing here? What does a true modern conservative want economically? Well, the right answer is free markets. They want people to be able to buy and sell as they see fit, like Adam Smith wanted, so that people can, through their own free choices, become as prosperous as they possibly can. Well, another thing is, what is the American dream? One of these conservative values that we talked about. Does the American dream refer to world conquest by Americans? Is it that success is not real for most people? Is the idea that anyone can succeed? Or is it the idea that you can't do anything by yourself? The answer is, the American dream is the idea that anyone can succeed in America if they're just willing to go out and work hard enough, because there's a free and open marketplace for them to make it on their own, if they're willing. communists, or modern liberals, or socialists, or classical liberals? The correct answer is, as we discussed just a few moments ago, they're like classical liberals, at least in the sense that for the most part they want government to stay out of people's lives. They want people to be left alone to make their own decisions about how they'll live their economic lives. Now, as we already said, they do want some intervention in cultural choices, but for the most of the decisions people make in their lives, they want the government to stay away. Finally, the last question of this unit. What kind of thing would a modern conservative want controlled? Would he want minimum wage laws for businesses? Or would he want people prevented from saying hateful things? Would he want the government to provide health insurance for people? Or would he want the government to limit the availability of abortion? Well, a modern conservative would want the government to stay out of minimum wage choices, to stay out of what people say, to leave people alone to make their own health care choices, and to step in and limit abortions. All right, so that does it for your lesson about modern conservatism. Next, we'll have our last lesson of Unit 1, Lesson 15, about various questions about ideology that remain.